Malta will allow 2 ships that have been stranded at sea for weeks with migrants on board to dock. Prime Minister Joseph Muscat says that they will then be redistributed among 8 European Union countries. Dozens of migrants, including 5 children, had remained stranded at sea with no European country offering a safe port. A total of 49 people have been rescued by 2 vessels run by German humanitarian groups. The vessels have been sailing back and forth off the coast of Malta for days. The ship's crews had expressed concern about the migrants' mental state, aggravated by bad weather and seasickness.
The only sustainable outcome is a Europe-wide solution, where all the member states are involved in the solution, and we stop with this kind of ping-ponging from one marine rescue coordination centre to another, each saying, it's not my problem, no, it's Italy's problem, no, it's not Italy's problem, it's Malta's problem. Everyone is trying to get rid of their responsibility, and that's absolutely deplorable. But at the same time, I understand the position of these countries, because they're trying to get rid of the responsibility because not everyone is taking responsibility, and that is a huge failing for Europe, a massive failing for Europe.
No sleeping in the net because of the wave. We are dying slowly in this place. We are dying slowly in this place because it's what we didn't expect.
We're not okay. We really need the European help right now. The UN, we really need their help.
Well, for more on that story, we are now joined by CGTN's Kevin Osberg, who is in Brussels for us. Kevin, what led to the change of heart by Malta after many days back and forth?
Well, because the Prime Minister, Joseph Muscat, essentially put down an ultimatum here. He said those 2 ships will not be allowed to dock in Malta unless other EU countries help take in some of those migrants, those 49 migrants on board those 2 ships, as well as about 250 migrants that Malta also recently rescued from the Mediterranean. So about 300 migrants, it said, had to be spread across various EU partners, neighbors, and friends. And in the end, that's what was negotiated through the help of the European Commission. About 250 migrants will be going to various EU countries. Some of them will also be sent home. There's a group of about 40 Bangladesh migrants that Malta has rescued that have already been deemed that they are not refugees. They don't meet refugee status. So instead, they're going to be sent back home. But it took a lot of phone calls here in Brussels from the European Commission. Specifically, the commissioner in charge of migration, Dimitri Avramopoulos, for weeks now has been working the phones to try to get the various EU countries to agree to take in. Today, when it was announced that Malta would allow those 2 ships to dock, he was very relieved that this crisis was over. But he said these past few weeks have not been the best for Europe.
And Kevin, is the frustration over this latest group of migrants likely to deter the movement of people, would you say?
Well, when you look at the numbers, they're already slowing down. The numbers just are continuing to decrease when it comes to the number of migrants and refugees fleeing to Europe. At the height of the refugee crisis in 2015, more than 1 million fled to this continent. But we now have numbers for 2017. The EU says just about 150,000 illegal crossings into the EU were made. Now, we first saw during the height of the crisis, the frontline country in the EU was Greece, because people were leaving Syria, heading into Turkey, and then making the dangerous journey into Greece. But because of an EU deal with Turkey, that essentially cut down that migration route. Then we saw numbers really explode when it comes to the number of migrants making their way to Italy. Italy now has a populist government that has deterred a lot of migrants from coming there. So now we see the main frontline country is Spain. So as EU policies toughen up, as member state policies toughen up, the number of migrants continue to decrease, and we continue to see that in the data.
Okay, CGTN's Kevin Osberg there. Thank you very much for that update.